Alright guys, here we are at the end of the first week, and I'm going to be putting together the Lao-tse video, and I want to put a little bit more on how to use the, how to use the readings and things like that, because I know you're starting out. And I have this reading on my computer itself. I opened this on my computer. I want you to know I opened it as a PDF file. And some of you, if you're kind of new with your computer, opening PDFs are kind of tricky and things like that, but you shouldn't open it within a browser. Notice this is not a browser. You will see these things. These are the characteristics of the PDF file. And you do this after, this is a regular Word file, you guys know these. And this, you're looking at my desktop here. And that's a PDF. You should have something like that on your computer. You should download the PDF of the readings and make sure you have it on your computer. And then once you open it, it should look, you just double click on it, it should look something like this. Okay? And I'll show you how to highlight things and things like that. We're going to use this little guy. And you can let me just show you really quickly. You can do that right here. Here I'm selecting this, and then bang, I highlighted it. Just hit that. So I would urge you to keep track of the readings as we go through the semester, because you're probably not writing the essay yet. I hope you're not. But you should be holding on to meaningful quotations that you think you might be able to build the essay on later. Okay, you should be holding on to those. So make sure you download it onto your computer. This is what a Word file looks like, and that's what a PDF looks like. And then you open it on your computer and use this little guy right here. And I'm not going to use this, but this is kind of cool. You can add sticky notes. If I wanted to add a sticky note, on this, you can do that. I'm not going to do that, though, not right now. I'm just going to get through the reading. So the highlighting it is good. That's worthwhile. Okay. So let me start going through this, and some of you are sitting there going, yeah, no kidding. Many of you are sitting there going, man, I didn't know that. Okay, so that's how they work. So just highlight the important things and put some notes down. This is the PDF on my computer, and then you save it, and it will save with, save it as, you might have your original one saved already on there, and save it as something else and put it under a highlight or with quotations or something like that. Keep track of your reading from throughout the semester, and that's going to make your writing later on much, much, much easier. I'm not kidding. It's going to make your writing easier. Not easy. It never gets easy. It's going to get easier. Okay? That'll keep track of all your notes from throughout the semester. And you can see it's giving me space to write notes. I can do it with notes. So I'm going to not do the notes this time. I'll do those later on. Okay? All right, so this is the reading, and you should have jumped into the Lao-tse, and you should have started reading it, and you should have started cussing me out, because the Lao-tse is really confusing. It's really kind of weird. You should have noticed that by now. And that's the Spanish Civil War. That was kind of a rowdy day. There's Lao-tse. That is a print of him that was made hundreds and hundreds of years after he lived. And so I did what I often do. I went and searched him on YouTube. There I go. Searched him. This is what came up. It's a bunch of really fluffy monkey things. Those are monks and doing their thing. That guy's floating. I will tell you right now, I have no use for that. These abstractions that aren't practical, aren't clear. And so what I'm going to do with this video is try to clarify things and give you a structure. I'm not going to give you a bunch of fluff. That most of these videos are fluff. I will tell you this video right here. Where'd it go? Yeah, this is the Audio Libro. It's complete in Spanish. I don't think that's going to help you. So if you can find the audiobook of it, it's the same basic stuff. It might be a slightly different translation, but it's the same stuff. But you will see this is, this is the full book. You will see, you will get some of the translations out there, and that's great. Those are fine to go over it. But watch out for people who are vague and fluffy, okay? So be careful with that. If you want to do some of these background, presentations, go ahead. I do them all the time, whatever. But that's not what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do a close reading of it. And I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit of Lao-tse. This is stuff I told you before. A little bit on him. We have no real idea who he was. We just know that over the years, this, the Tao got organized under the name of Lao-tse. It's a quotation, essentially. I'll call it a quotation, his name. Did he exist as a person? Did he write all this? Maybe. I don't think he did. What I think it is an amalgamation. In other words, it's a collection of sayings and writings that basically were organized around the same core idea that were stuck together by people over the generations. One of the very first editions that is in existence is from about 400 years after he died. In other words, it had been floating around, and anybody could have stuffed their own writing in with it. And you might be going, oh, yeah, what are we going to do? We're going to read it. This is what we have together today, are the things that were passed down under the title of Lao-tse. These are the things that made sense, and these are the things that were valuable throughout Asia. And the text followed throughout Asia and through a lot of customs, and a lot of civilizations really threw out things that were stupid and held on to things that were good. So Lao-tse is essentially the ideas in the text that survived throughout hundreds of years and came down as wise writings. Was there a person? Maybe. I don't know. So we're not sure. Okay. I'm not a Lao-tse scholar. I will tell you this. You can go through and often tell what was put in, taken out, things like that. And if you understand the original grammar, they can look through the ancient grammar of the original writings and kind of, delineate between this one's older than that and things like that. They can, I don't know how to do that. I don't know about you, but my ancient Chinese isn't too good. So what I've done is just move that. That's textual criticism. It's worthwhile. It's kind of fun. I've gotten into it before, but not with Lao-tse. I don't know anything about it. But I know it has a similar kind of history of being an ancient text and being an amalgamation of different texts that were put together. Plato, for example, was almost certainly written by a single person at a single time and by Plato himself. There's a reason why we know that. There's a lot more information that was flowing around. Around Lao-tse's times, we don't know. Okay, it came together. So always think of the name of Lao-tse as in quotation marks. I would ask you to do that. That's one of the first things that you can make sense of it. But I would also ask you is, don't worry about it. Okay, you're looking for what's valuable that's come down to us under the name of Lao-tse. And that alone should solve a lot of your problems with trying to determine what's the original and what's new. You're not going to figure it out. Okay, and it's pretty cool the way it is. It's magnificent what's come down to us. So let me jump into it. When I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to worry about what was inserted later, because there probably was some things. And the scholars disagree on it, and they have insights into it. But for now, let's not worry about it. We'll worry about some of that with some of the later readings. The Tao, this is part 1, chapter 1. I'm going to get through about the first 4 chapters, and you're going to see this stuff does work together, whether or not it was written by one Lao-tse or by 4 people who knew how to spell it. I don't know. But it works together, and in a way that's not abstract. And right from the beginning, you get this, and you're sitting there thinking, man, Pendleton, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Because look at that first sentence. Okay. The Tao that can be trodden is not the enduring and unchanging Tao. The name that can be named is not the enduring and unchanging name. What the heck does that mean? And that sentence for so many people is difficult to understand for good reason. But it's controlling throughout the whole reading. It is ambiguous. It is not supposed to be defined. The Tao is not to be defined. That's the purpose of it. So many things in our world cannot be demonstrated and defined and delineated. Okay, so many things that are important cannot be spelled out. And to spell them out is to do them harm. Okay, to define certain things that are important to us, that we just know are there. For example, really try to define justice, okay, or right and wrong, and you're going to miss it. Okay, there's ambiguity built into those concepts. All right, so he's spelling out from the beginning that the Tao should not only should not be, but cannot be named properly. It remains that way, and that's part of how the world works. And a lot of what Lao-tse is going to do is spell out a philosophy based on how he sees the world working. Not only the social world, but the physical world. It's going to run very deep in a very practical level. And he's going to be very clear about this. That's why this vague stuff where you've got these abstract videos, all that just drives me bonkers. Because what I've taken out of Lao-tse is very real. Okay? And the first thing is, certain things you just don't define. Okay? Because they can't be. So many parts of this world cannot be defined. It doesn't mean that they're meaningless. It means that you can't spell them out, because there's always going to be exceptions to it. Okay? So the Tao, at the core of our universe, is undefined and undelineated. Right? And that's okay. So realize that. Conceived of as having no name, it is the originator of heaven and earth. Conceived of as having a name, it is the mother of all things. Okay, but he wants you to conceive of it as no name. Okay, so it's a more powerful thing. Okay, if you start naming it, you can trace origins back, and you can trace it back to a mother where it's got an origin. But he wants you to realize that it goes back to something that's undefinable, that can't be delineated. He is not just being vague and fluffy. He is being clear with what cannot be clarified. Okay, you cannot clarify the undefined. You can't go defining it if it can't be. Okay, you have to realize, and this is, he is urging you, and he does this throughout. He wants you to show a degree of modesty. You don't go into things and start spelling things out that you cannot spell out. So you leave these things untouched. Okay, and we'll come back to this. And you're going to see how this plays out. Lao-tse is really good with this. Okay, and even though on first reading a lot of folks look at it and go, man, that's bonkers. It's not the Lao-tse. It's us, where we can't understand concepts of ambiguity. And going to chapter 2, and I'm going to get up to about chapter 4 to get you going in the right direction. And then I'm going to let you make sense out of the rest, which you'll be able to do if you got these foundations down. And this is the next aspect that's difficult for us to understand. And this is why I love this text. All in the world know the beautiful, the beauty of the beautiful. That's great. Yeah, you know beauty. Wonderful. And in doing this, they have the idea of what ugliness is. So if you know the beautiful in front of you, you have the idea automatically, whether or not it's present to you, it's going to be back there hovering of what the ugly is. It's what the beautiful isn't. That's what this is. The world is built on dichotomies. When you define one thing, what beauty is with this, you will simultaneously have an idea of what ugly is. It is what is not this. That's me. I'm not that. This is the beautiful. And back here is going to be the ugly. Automatically the world works with those dichotomies. Okay? And that's going to saturate the writing. When you understand one thing, the other is there, is already present. And he says that with the skill. They all know the skill of the skillful. In doing this, they have the idea. We know the skill of the skillful, the idea of want of skill. Okay? So if you have these dude perfect videos on YouTube, you're going to have these fail videos right next to them. Okay? That's what it is. So the concepts are built together. They are simultaneously built together. That's how they work. And that's how the universe works. At a far deeper level than can be easily explained. But that's how it works. If you want to understand what justice is, you really understand it when you've experienced injustice. To understand justice, which is a vague, abstract concept, it's hard to define. You have to understand what it is to be treated unjustly, because you're going to know them simultaneously. To know this one is when this one is not so present. So it's not so present here. Okay? So that dichotomy. So I want you to have two terms down and two concepts down, I guess. Ambiguity, which is at the core of the universe. It doesn't mean anything goes. I want to be clear about ambiguity. Ambiguity means it cannot. Let me come down here so I'm a little bit clearer myself. Behind ambiguity is this very clear idea that it cannot be defined. And once you define it, you've kind of wrecked it, okay? So don't wreck it, okay? Certain things throughout this world can't be defined. And when you define things, the nature of definition is you always bring the opposite. How do you understand, algebra with, when you understand 1, you obviously understand -1. So when you understand negative, 7/5, you understand what 7/5 is. You constantly understand the opposite by understanding one thing. Okay? So I want that to be clear. I hope you get the idea. This might not be as in your face, blah, 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 but man, it rings true. This is good stuff. Lao-tse really nailed it. Okay? He understood the nature of ambiguity and the nature of dichotomy. And he goes through, and this is what the culture held on to. Year after year, century after century, decade after decade, held on to the nature of ambiguity and dichotomies. And we're going to get to this. We're going to go into his political philosophy a bit. Therefore, the sage, this is going to be somebody with real wisdom, manages affairs. Remember what I talked about with political science. These are the people who are in power and how they exercise it. Manages affairs. He's got some kind of power without doing anything. What the heck? He's going to control things by not controlling them, and conveys his instructions without the use of speech. So he's going to, and I want you to understand this, he's going to embody them. Okay? And he's going to lead by embodying, not by controlling, but by embodying them. Okay? And he's going to attract people. They are going to want to embody him. They are going to want to become what he's becoming. Okay? Notice if we go back to those old definitions that we had, he is essentially being liberal here. He's not controlling people. And I'm going through chapter 3 towards the bottom. He's not telling people what to do. He's recognizing that I can't. And once I start pushing you in one direction, you're going to start pushing back and pulling back. And if you think about this in very real terms, and this is why I really get annoyed at these abstractions with Lao-tse and everything. Think about China. Why is Hong Kong blowing up right now? And it is. It's becoming more and more restless and riotous and troublesome as the Chinese government starts to assert itself. Okay? And this is a lot of how the world works. The more an authority asserts himself or herself, is the world pulls back from them. And that's the nature of the political ideology. What you don't do is assert authority and start to define and control. What you do is embody and emulate, and if you're doing it the right way and they have their good nature, they will come into unison with you. Okay? That's why I see this as essentially a liberal ideology. Now, I will tell you right now, you can see this one as conservative. You can. But I'm going to tell you that I see it, many people see it as more liberal. Not everyone. You can see it otherwise, as long as you're paying attention to what's going on. Okay? So now watch what he does. This is in chapter 3, and I'm just going to get through chapter 4. Maybe I'll step into 5. Maybe. Therefore the sage, in the exercise of government, empties the minds, fills their bellies, weakens their wills, and strengthens their bones. That is a really weird line, and that's why I'm pointing that one out to you. This one causes trouble for me. I'm moving this line that's troublesome for me right in the front. It would have been a lot easier if I would have just not highlighted it, if I had just gone like this and got rid of the highlighting. So I'm not going to do that. That's kind of weird, and that one is troublesome for our students, and it's troublesome for me. In other words, he leaves people really weak, and you're going to find in that filling people's minds, you are starting to control them, how they're going to think, and leading them to desires and leading them to ambition. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want people to be ambitious. Okay? He wants people to be accepting. That's a difference. Okay? Many Americans who read Lao-tse are troubled by this, but I don't want to avoid it. I want to point out this troubling line. Okay, it is. So he wants people to be accepting of what he's promoting, accepting not intellectual. Most Americans who read it really want to be educated. It's better, blah, blah, blah. But he's saying once you're educated, you're ambitious. And then you're starting to control other things. You are teaching other people to control other people. And that creates problems throughout the society. Creates chaos. Okay? And that's the end game. I spelled out last time, with ideology, you start off with an assumption about how humans are. And I'm going to say that Lao-tse is going to start off with an essentially, he kind of thinks people are basically okay. They're not all Winnie the Pooh and nice and everything, but they're not inherently prone to violence. He thinks they're essentially prone to peace. And that's where he wants to go, is more to a peaceful state. That is his end game. And I want you to keep that in mind. Both conservative and liberal ideologies will lead to an end game. And in both, you can have a peaceful state or an ambitious state or something. Either way, you can. Liberal states can lead to peaceful states or ambitious states. He is creating a more liberal ideology leading towards a less ambitious people, but a more peaceful state. And you're going to find some of the conservative ideologies lead in that direction. His leads to a peaceful state. He constantly tries to keep them without knowledge. That's what he said. And without desire. Desire is ambition. It's ambition to possess and control. Notice there's your problem. The leader wants to embody the proper ideology, which is to let people be. And they need to let people be around them and let the world be around them. That's what this is about. Okay? When he wants them to empty their minds and fill their bellies, he wants them to empty their desires to control and to understand in that way. Okay? So that's what he's doing with this. And on 4, let me touch on 4 and then I'll shut up about it. We should blunt our sharp points and unravel the complications of things. We should temper our brightness and bring ourselves into agreement with the obscurity of others. Acceptance is what he wants you to do. And what the leader does is accept the world the way it is. And this is so important, to accept the world the way it is. It's an emotional stance. Being able to accept things, this is the way it is. This is okay. That's fine. Once you start saying this isn't good enough, I'm going to control this, I'm going to fix it, that is when you are going to start creating bedlam, chaos. Once you start controlling and organizing things, you know what I'm going to do. You start creating chaos. Okay? Once you become aware of what 1 is, you just created the idea of -1. Once you started pushing towards a more improved world, you became more aware of a less improved. Okay? You create dichotomies. And what he wants to create is a more accepting world. And this is built around an ambiguity, and it's built around resisting the dichotomies because they are inevitable. This is part of our universe. You don't push in one direction without knowing it's going to pull back. Okay? So those dichotomies and that acceptance, he's not just saying sit down, play video games all day and eat bags of potato chips, but he's saying you should not push in one direction because you're going to become aware of everything in the opposite direction. Okay? So don't do that. That's what you need to know about Lao-tse, and go ahead and get through them. Get through them as best you can. If you understand that aspect about them, you're going to get a lot more out of them. And go ahead and get through the rest of the reading. And the next reading we're going to be doing is the Plato. Now, I will be posting a video on Plato pretty dang soon, probably over the weekend. I'll post it a little bit earlier because Plato is tough. So, well, let's say I'll probably post it by Tuesday maybe. I'll try to get the Plato up there early. The introductory video in Plato is really necessary because Plato is tough to read without an introduction. But I do want you to get through the Lao-tse, and then I'll get a video up there to get you ready. Let's say by Monday, Tuesday, I'll get it up there to get you going on the Plato. The same type of thing happens if you run into it with this thing is 2,500 years old. They don't know what they're talking about. You're going to really look stupid. Behind Lao-tse is a very sophisticated approach to the universe. and to our world and to our political nature. Very sophisticated. That's very instructive. The same thing goes on with Plato, and I'll post a good video on that. So go through the Lao-tse and have some fun with it. Make sure you download the PDF onto your computer and use the highlight, if not the comments. Okay, use the comments section to put little comments in places. See, I put the comment box right there. This is true. I could put that in there, and I urge you to use that with the PDF or to write in the margins of the text itself. Okay, I'll leave you there. This has been a little bit long, 25 minutes. Have a good weekend, guys, okay? I'll get a hold of you next week, and we'll be talking Plato. Take care.